Hi there everyone, and welcome to the latest Guitar Quest lesson. It's week 31 this week, believe it or not, so yeah, it's all progressing well, so hopefully you've been on the lessons from the start, then hopefully you're making good progress and things are all going pretty well. We are going to crack on as sort of we normally do, really. So a couple of things just before we get started. So if you have any devices kicking around that might have notifications pinging away and that kind of thing, please turn them off and let's give ourselves this undivided half an hour of attention for guitar playing. And if there's any children watching, then please, I'd suggest have an adult in the room as well, just to help explain a few bits and pieces if there's any things that don't make sense. Phones, emails, just turn them off, and I think that's pretty much it. So we're pretty much ready to get going. I put a little comment over in the chat thing as well, so if you have any questions as we go through, then please do add them in there. So just to give you sort of heads up of what we're going to do today. So last week we looked at the riff to Come As You Are, so we're going to do a little bit more on that one. I had intended to get onto Day Tripper last week, but didn't get around to it, sort of ran out of time, so we're definitely going to get onto that today. But prior to those, we're just going to do a couple from the book just to kind of warm up into things, really. So hopefully that makes sense. And let's start off with a bit of tuning. So just compare your strings to what I'm playing here. I've checked my tuning already, so I know this is more or less correct. So here we go with our bottom E string. Okay, and then on to our A. And then on to D. And G. Then B. And then finally our top E string. Okay, so we're good to go. Make sure you're in good, comfortable posture. We talked about this several times before, so hopefully you know the drill by now. But basically, whatever posture you're sitting in, try not to allow the neck of the guitar to point down. That's pretty much the worst thing we could do from a posture point of view. So that's the main thing. There was something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it is now, so I won't say it. So we are going to go on to exercise 24 on page 18. This is Stranger on a Horse. We're going to play this one as a bit of a warm-up, just to kind of get the fingers moving, get our eyes sort of back in with reading the notes and that kind of thing. We've played this for a couple of weeks now, so hopefully it's okay. Just in case you haven't seen it for any reason, then just watch out for the rests in bars 5 and 6, and then we've got the B on the 6th string at the 7th fret. So we play that and we slide down towards our open E string. And that happens a couple of times. So bar 10, we've got the same kind of sliding movement. Otherwise, the B is just 5th string, 2nd fret. So hopefully that makes sense. We've got a repeat mark as well in the penultimate bar, so we're going to play the whole thing twice. The second time we'll be doing the second time bar. So, what page is it on? It's on page 18 of Guitar Quest 2. So hopefully we're all good there. I'll just give another couple of seconds just to hopefully get to the right page, and hopefully that'll do it. So let's go. So after 4, we're just going to take it nice and steady. Predominantly using the thumb on the right hand. In fact, if there's any notes we need to use the fingers for. So good luck everybody. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. rest, rest, B, A, rest, rest, and then 7th fret sliding down to the open string. First time bar, back to beginning. One, two, three at 7th fret, back down to the bottom E. B, rest, rest, and B again. A, rest, rest, 7th fret. 2nd time bar. 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. So hopefully that was okay. As I said, we played that for a couple of weeks now. At least I think we have. So if you found any of that difficult, I would suggest to go back to some of the earlier videos. So probably weeks 29 and 30. Yeah, I go into it in a little bit more detail in those particular videos. So just check those out if you have any particular questions there. There's one question that's come through. How do you take rest there? So I think you mean how do we play the rest? I sometimes hear the strings still vibrating after. Okay, so the thing to remember with guitar is that when you play, if I play the 6th string, if I cut the sound of the 6th string off, I might still hear some other noise coming from the guitar. The first string's the same, you can cut that sound off, things are still kind of echoing away. So sometimes we might want that, you know, and this is just a piece of music I've written for a book, so there's no like, nothing you've got to be like, I've got to do it this way. It's just kind of whatever you think sounds good. But if you want to cut all the sound off, I think I can't remember which way around I did it, but you've got two options. You can either use your left hand and just lightly touch across all the strings to stop them vibrating. So when I lightly rest my hand there, if I strum across the strings, you just get that sort of dull, muted kind of sound. So that would cut all the sound off. Or alternatively, you could do the same with the right hand, whether you go sort of almost like a karate chop kind of thing, or just flat palm. It doesn't really matter necessarily, particularly because these rests are quite spread out or spacious, shall we say. So we've got plenty of time to get ourselves back into position, no matter what option you choose. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, gives you a bit of an answer, maybe a bit of context there as well. Do ask if it doesn't though. So yeah, there's one other thing I'd like to go over now before we get on to Come As You Are. So I'd just like to have a quick go at number 25. Because again, a week or two back we started talking about sharps, and okay, that did make sense. Sorry, I just seen a message come through. I'm glad to hear that. Good stuff. So number 25, which has these sharps. So remember, sharps are the hashtag sign, and when we see them in the bar, they last until the end of the bar, unless we see the natural sign. So, for example, in exercise 25, in bar 2, we've got the F sharp written there. There's another F, the second note in that bar. So that still remains an F sharp because we haven't seen the natural sign. Then as we go into the next bar, we've got a couple of G's at the start there, and then we've got an F sharp, but then the final note, we've got the natural sign, so we come back to the normal F. Again, we've talked about this a little bit more extensively in previous weeks, so if that isn't making any sense, then I'd suggest you watch last week's lesson, I think it was. So let's try it. We're going to give it a go. Remember, we've got the first and second time bars again, so fairly short and sweet, this one really, but we'll get stuck into it now. So here we go. After 4, number 25, green tea. It's page 19. Okay, so here we go. So 1, 2, natural, E, hold it and back to the beginning, F sharp again, second time bar, two, and then play it again, and then the rest. So, and that time with the rest, I did use my left hand. It's probably a slightly easier way of making sure everything gets cut off. So yeah, one thing you might, if you watch other guitarists play, maybe not so much beginners guitarists, but you might see them do this kind of thing where if you're playing a chord and you want to cut the sound off, you maybe use pinky finger or something like that, just to kind of mute it. So that's another way of doing that kind of thing, but ultimately it's the same kind of approach. We just got to try and stop the strings from vibrating. So whatever means are necessary. So, okay, let's move on. So come as you are then. Now, what I haven't done is take the music out, so that's woe with me really. Bear with me just a second. So hopefully you have your copies of Come As You Are and Day Tripper. So we looked at Come As You Are last week. We talked about it fairly extensively. So again, hopefully it kind of makes sense. Now on the original, that main riff, as you can see on the first line, is played 11 times. So we're not going to do that because that is just, it's going to take a long time. It's not necessarily a bad thing for you to practice it 11 times, particularly if you're finding it tricky, because obviously the more we practice it, the better we get at it. Yeah, we'll give it a go in just a second. The line I'm more interested in is going to be the second line because we've got the chord bit coming in at the end. So we'll get stuck into that. I'm just going to talk you through the first line a little bit just to refresh your memory just in case. So in terms of when to come in, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we come in on the and after 3. So, okay. So we're going to go, when we do come in, so it's E, E, F, and then we come up to the F sharp, 6th string, 2nd fret. So we're going to hold that, and if possible, hold that finger down when you play the A. You open 5th string, so the notes ring into each other, and I think that sounds really nice. If you lift the finger off, it might sound a little bit kind of detached, not necessarily staccato, if that means anything to any of you. But yeah, it might sound a little almost fragmented and not quite as joined up as we might like. So yeah, we'll try and hold that middle finger down. So the second bar there, we've got F sharp, A, F sharp, A, F sharp, F sharp again, and then down to F natural. Then we, last bar of the first line, bottom E, going to get to that B, and we're going to hold that one down, similar to what we did in the previous bar with the F sharp. Again, those notes just ring into each other, they kind of make a bit of a chord sound, so again that sounds really nice. And then the end, we've got E, F, and then the repeats, which takes us back to the beginning of bar 2, so back to that F sharp. So I'm just going to play you the first line a couple of times around just to sort of refresh your memory. I'll count us in, so feel free to join in as well if you want to. So here we go. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. From there it just goes round in circles, like I said, 11 times before it moves on to the second line. Hopefully that wasn't too fast. If I do play anything too fast and you're watching and you'd like me to go a bit slower, do just drop a message in and we can do that. A question that came up last week, I think it was about what fingers to use on the right hand. So if I was playing it, I would just use the thumb to play all the notes. So when I'm talking about right hand, I'm talking about the plucking hand. So this is assuming we're all right-handed, and I know that is not the case. So some of you may well be left-handed, so in which case you'd be using your thumb on your left hand to play. So Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. You can use the fingers, or a combination of some of the fingers, I should say. That's fine to do, there's nothing wrong with that at all. As I think I mentioned last week, this would originally have been played on an electric guitar with a plectrum. You have that one point of attack when you play with a plectrum, which is something we're going to talk about a bit further down the line. So because we're playing a fingerstyle version of it, we are therefore having to kind of create our own way of playing it and not necessarily copying the original, totally accurately. The notes are the same, it's just how we play them is a little bit different. So, okay, let's move on to the second line. So this is the more tricky bit. It starts off the same. So we've got the F sharp here. Overthinking my right hand now. So back to the thumb. So F sharp, I'm going to hold it down. As we come to that last bar, I'm going to get that middle finger down on the B, back to the bottom E, and then we're going to drop our fingers into the E major chord shape. So remember, E major, 5th string second, 4th string second, and third string first fret. And we're going to go up, up, down. So if I just play the second line, again I'll count you in so you can play along if you're feeling confident. Okay, so 3, 4. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes sense. What you might find is tempting to do, and it's not necessarily wrong, particularly early days. I say early days, we've been doing these lessons now since January, so it's although it's relatively, it's nearly a year, which is amazing. That's still relatively early days in terms of a guitar journey, should we say, where you might be talking to people who've been playing for like 30 or 40 or longer, 30, 40 years. So we're still quite early on in our journey. But yeah, what you might find is you go like this. And after you've played that B, you lift your hand away and then come back into the chord. And that's not necessarily wrong, it's just not perhaps the most efficient way of playing it. One of the things I think is not often talked about on various other guitar type things I've seen online, on YouTube and so on, is a lot of guitar playing is actually about efficiency and how efficient you can move your fingers around the fretboard and that kind of thing. Not necessarily the most interesting way of thinking about it, but the more efficient we can be with what we do with our left hand and our right hand and that kind of thing, the better we are going to get. So something just to kind of have at the back of your mind, I'm playing, could I be a little bit more efficient with my left hand fingers? Can I hold things down a little bit more and things join up a little bit better and that kind of thing. So, okay, let's give it a go. We're going to play from the beginning all the way through. We're going to play the first line where the repeats are, we can do that 3 times. So effectively the first line more or less 3 times, and then we do the second line. So effectively it's going to feel like 4 times rounds. So, good luck everybody, here we go. So we're coming in the and after 3, okay? So 1, 2, 3. Second time. Oh, sorry, I messed up talking there. So let's try that again. Apologies, everyone. So okay, from the start again. After 3, my bad. Sorry. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Repeat. Second line. Okay, so If that went well, give yourself a pat on the back, the usual kind of acknowledgement we've talked about before. Always good to celebrate the wins and that kind of thing. The other thing I should perhaps mention is in terms of the strumming, how do we do that on the right hand? So we've got the E, we're going to go up, up, down. Whether you go up and down with the thumb or the finger or a combination of the two, at this stage doesn't really matter. So just go with whatever kind of feels most natural to you. But what I'd like to do is move on to Day Tripper. So this is, again, a very famous guitar riff by the Beatles. So hopefully some of you will know it. There's some interesting ideas going on in here. There's a couple of things, or at least one thing anyway, that we haven't talked about in the Guitar Quest books. But we will talk about them a little bit in Guitar Quest 3. So obviously we're quite close to the end of Guitar Quest 2. So when we go on to the third book, some of these ideas will get talked about a little bit more. So the first one I want to talk about is, so far everything we've played has been in the open or the first position, which means our first finger's lined up at the first fret, middle finger at the second, third finger at the third, and the pinky finger at the fourth. Now we can play Day Tripper this way if we want to, but actually if we were to move our hand up a fret and then play the notes, then it should become a little bit easier. So if I demonstrate the first bar, so we start on the bottom E, then we're going to go G, G sharp. Now you could go third finger, fourth finger, but actually it is easier to go with fingers 2 and 3, and we don't actually have to play any notes at the first fret. So therefore, if we move our hand up a little bit, we're giving ourselves, well, we're going to be using our stronger fingers to do the bulk of the work. So that's why I would suggest to play it this way. So yeah, so we start off here, so we go bottom E, beat 1, we're going to hold it onto the start of beat 2, then halfway up through, so on the and, we're going to hit the G, then the G sharp. Now this is the other thing that's new that we haven't talked about. So if you see in the music, and if I just bring the music up so I can make it clear as to exactly what I'm talking about. Let me just change that to that. This thing here, B2, so that there is Roman numerals for 2 and B is barring. And that little line is just telling us where we're going to bar, and I'll explain that in a second. So basically, these two notes here, B and E, we're going to bar at the second fret. So, if I explain that now in a little bit more detail, so barring is where you put usually your first finger. You can use other fingers every now and again, but it's quite unusual really. Predominantly, we're going to be barring with our first finger. So, barring is where you push down across several strings. It could just be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, 5 or 6. And again, that's something we'll explore a little bit more of. I think we talk about it in Guitar Quest 3. It's only a little bit, but maybe not to the fullest extent that you can do barring. So you'll see people playing chords like this kind of thing, and you'll see their first finger going across all the strings. So that's like a full-on kind of bar chord type idea. But for what we're going to do today, what we need to do is get the pressure down with our first finger on the B, 5th string, 2nd fret, and then the E, 4th string, 2nd fret. So rather than moving our finger back and forth like that, we're going to push down across both strings. You don't necessarily want to flex your finger, I don't know if you can see that. You don't really want to be doing that necessarily, so try and keep it fairly flat. It does mean that if you catch these other strings, you might actually get some of those notes sounding as well. So obviously we're just going to hopefully avoid those. But yeah, it should enable the tune to become a bit smoother as well. So so we start on the bottom E, got the G, G sharp, then we're going to bar at the 2nd fret and play the 5th string and then the 4th string, and hopefully you'll get those notes out, and then the final note's an open D. So let's play that again. So you've got 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and if you find that really difficult, you could go fingers 3 and 4 and maybe come into a bit of an E minor chord shape like that, or fingers fingers 1 and 2. So, you know, there's options there. Go with whatever feels like it's working best for you. Barring is incredibly common on guitar, so it is it's something you want to get used to. But as mentioned, we're still fairly early in our guitar journeys, so if you find that a bit much, that is fine. You know, don't worry about it, and go for the other options mentioned. So yeah, that's our first bar. So you've got 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, so at the end of the bar, we play the D. It's tied over to the start of the next bar, so nothing on beat 1 of the next bar. We come back to the B, 5th string, 2nd fret, and then we're going to go to the F sharp, 4th string, 4th fret. Come back to the B, open D, and then E. And in that bar, we could hold that first finger down on the 5th string, 2nd fret, if you are comfortable doing so. So I've just seen a question. So would you play B and E with the first finger? Yes, you do. So this first finger, you've just got to try and get enough pressure through that over strings 4 and 5 to be able to get those notes to sound. So on your right hand, again, you could use a combination of thumb and fingers or whatever. I'm just using the thumb because that feels more natural to me for this type of playing. So if you notice as I'm playing there, my thumb's just moving across the strings, and that finger hasn't moved, but I'm getting both of the notes out. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to play the first line in its entirety. So here we go. So 3, 4. And if you want, you could put the finger back down in a sort of barring position, which is what I did, or you could just come back down to playing the E on its own, because you've got plenty of time to get back into the barring position. Again, notice that this is played 5 times, so we're going to be going around it in circles quite a few times. So let me demonstrate the whole thing. Okay, and can you slow it down as well, please? Yes, okay. So I'll play the whole thing. We're going to go a little bit slower. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to go 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then repeat. So let's try it again. This time we're going to try and go around, say twice. I'll do my best to count, and I might lose my way. So if I do stop halfway through, I apologise in advance, but we'll give it a go. Okay, so here we go. So twice around the first line. Okay, so 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and repeat, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, I'm going to try again. I'm going to go slower as well. Okay. So after 4, so 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and repeat, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so we're actually pretty much out of time. Hopefully that kind of made sense. The full speed would be more like. So if it goes really well, you know, by all means, then do try and crank up the speed and that kind of thing. But as with everything, it's always best to start slow and just gradually work your way up, so that you give yourself that firm foundation. If you try and run before you can walk, that sort of thing never ends well. So give yourself plenty of time with it. Just a quick heads up about the rest of the tune. So we're only looking at the intro and the verse. So the first part of the verse is the same. The third line there, it changes, but it's actually just the same thing, but starting on the 5th string. But we'll talk about that a bit more next time, because again, there's a few things that might, a little bit of explanation might help. But in theory, you just do exactly what you did on the first line and just start on the 5th string, so 1 string closer to the floor. Play it once, and then you come back and do the main bit that we've been talking about again. So hopefully that makes sense. I say we'll have to finish up there for today. So very best luck with the practice. In terms of what to practice, I would suggest we go for exercise 25 from Guitar Quest 2 as a bit of a warm-up, just to kind of keep our hand in with that, keep the sharps and things in our minds. Then we can also have a go at Come As You Are, see if we can get that going, perhaps after, so I'm going to take a week off, I'll explain that in a second. But when we next meet up, we might try going a little bit faster with Come As You Are as well. And Day Tripper, we'll finish that off. I'll talk a little bit more about the bit where you start on the 5th string, and so we can sort of dive into that a little bit. And hopefully with a couple of weeks practice, that first line might be starting to come together enough that you feel like you could play along. Even if it feels a little bit slow, that's cool. It's just small steps towards getting to where we want to get to. So, okay, so as I mentioned, or sort of alluded to, there's no lesson next week, sort of half term around here, and for those of you that have been watching me for a while, you know that I do tend to follow the sort of school terms more or less. So yeah, so no lesson next week. So the next one is actually going to be the 7th of November. And we'll just be carrying on with more of the same kind of stuff. So a little bit more Day Tripper, and then we'll be getting back to Guitar Quest 2 and working our way towards finishing that off, and then we'll see where we go after that. So if you enjoyed the lesson today, please do give it a thumbs up. If you find everything's going well and you fancy recording yourself and sharing it with me, then please do. It's always great to receive feedback like that, and all that kind of thing. So really do appreciate everybody that stayed on to watch, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. So have a great time over the next couple of weeks, and I will see you soon. All right, take care then. Bye bye.